In this video, we'll create an HTML5 website from scratch using HTML and CSS. So let's take a look at the design here before we get started with our HTML. So at the top of the website, you'll notice that we have a gray bar that features the phone number on the right, which I always think is great for local companies to have. Then we have the logo beneath that, followed by our responsive navigation that's going to change colors as we hover over it. Then beneath that, scrolling down the page, we have the banner image, a section of text there, and then this two-column section with paragraphs on the left and image on the right, followed by this three-column section where we have headings, images, and paragraphs. Then all the way down at the bottom, we have some text just above this footer section with our social media links. So let's scroll back up and take a look at how it turns responsive as we flex the website down. So at 768 pixels, you're going to notice that the navigation is going to go from a horizontal navigation to a vertical mobile navigation, and all of the sections are going to turn into a single column from 2 columns or 3 columns. All right, so let's take a final look here at the mobile version for how it's going to appear on an iPhone 10, and then we'll go ahead and get started. So as you can see, as we scroll over the mobile navigation, the whole mobile bar is going to shift colors rather than just a small section on the desktop version. Okay, so the one thing that we'll need to get started with the tutorial are the HTML5 website starter files that you can get in the description of the video. Once you download the starter files, you can open up index.html and style.css. I'm going to be using the free program called Sublime Text, which you can get from sublimetext.com, and I'm going to be using Google Chrome as the web browser for where I'll be viewing index.html. So also in the starter files is an image folder, including all of the images we'll need to create the HTML5 Serenity Fitness website. Okay, so here I am in Sublime Text, and we have a little bit of information started for us in style.css as well as index.html. So let's go over it really quickly before we get started. So here in our HTML document, we have inside the head section the title of our website, HTML5 website Serenity Fitness Studio. Then we have a link to style.css, which is right here. And then we have a link to Font Awesome, which is what's going to allow us to use these really cool social icons at the bottom of the page. Okay, so I'm just going to enter a little bit of text in here to make sure that we're connected to Google Chrome, and then we can go ahead and get started with our first tag. So the first thing that we're going to lay out is going to be this gray section at the top of the website that includes the phone number. So we're going to call that div ID callout, and inside of our div we'll have a paragraph tag where it says call us at, so call us at, and then we want our phone number to be bold. So we'll use the B tag for bold, or you can use the tag strong, and we'll say 858-555-5555. Okay, so then I'm going to close out the div tag here, and let's take a look at the version we're working on in Google Chrome. So there we have our paragraph text with the bold phone number. So the next thing that we'll add will be our logo where it says Serenity. So we're going to wrap that inside of a header tag, and then let's start our logo with an A tag for our link. So you can put index.html here or the link to the homepage of your website. I'm just going to do the hashtag for now to keep us on the same page. And then inside of our A tag, we'll have our image. So the image for our logo is img / since we're inside of the image folder, and then serenity.png. So I'll just type that in here. Okay, and now if we save it and refresh, here we have our Serenity logo. Okay, so next, moving on down the page, let's get started on the navigation here. So we're going to use the HTML5 tag nav for our navigation, and I'm just going to create a little space here so we're not looking at the bottom of the screen for the tutorial. So we'll say nav and open and close your nav, and then inside of that we'll have an unordered list, and then of course we have list items inside of a unordered list. And then inside of each list item we'll have a link. Again, I'm going to use the hashtag here for our link. And then we'll have a list item and link for each navigation item. So I'm going to go ahead and paste 5 here since we have 6 navigation links. And then we'll fill them out. Okay, so the first one here in between the A tag is going to be home, and now if we refresh, there we have our 6 list items with home as our first. Then we have facility and services next. So facility and then services. Okay, and then we have pricing, and it was hours, and the last one is contact. Alright, so now if we refresh, there we have all 6 of our navigation links. And the last thing that we'll do is we're going to make it so when we hover over it, or rather when it's active, it stays the hover color that we're going to give it in the CSS. So we'll add li class active to the first navigation link so it stays a different shade from the rest. So let's drop down and add our banner image now, which includes the fitness image there, as well as join our Loft Fitness Studio beneath it. So let's say div class banner, then you can close out your div, and we'll add the first image, which is image source img /, and this one is banner.png, and then the second is heading.png. So img / banner.png, and then image source img heading.png. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have our first, but I missed something on the heading image, so I missed the / there. Okay, and there we have our heading down beneath. Okay, so the next thing that we'll add will be our left column here, which is separate from the right column. So let's say div class left dash col for left column, and then inside of that we'll have 2 paragraphs. So to speed it up, I'm just going to copy and paste this paragraph in here. You can use regular Ipsum dummy text if you just want to do a Google search for dummy text to paste in there. And then make sure you close out your div after the 2 paragraphs. Alright, so next let's go ahead and add our left column, or sorry, our right column, and let's call this one sidebar. So div class sidebar, and then you can close your div, and we'll add the image that's in there. So image source img /, and this one is sitting.png. Okay, so now if we refresh, we should have 2 paragraphs followed by the sitting image, which we do right here. Alright, so next, moving down the page, we can add these 1/3 sections here. So let's drop down underneath our div class sidebar and say div class 1-3rd, and then you can close out your div. And the first thing that we'll add will be a heading. So we're going to use the H3 tag here for heading 3 and write fitness classes. As you probably know, we have heading 6 being the smallest all the way up to heading 1 being the largest. And then let's add our image. So image source img/fitness.png. Okay, and then let's drop down and add our paragraph text that's underneath that. All right. Okay, so that's all for the first of our 3 columns here. So we have our heading, our image, and then the paragraph text underneath that. Now let's move on to our second and third. All right, so we can drop down and add div class 1-third, and then close out the div, and then we'll have a heading 3, and underneath that will be our image, and then our paragraph section. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this 1/3 section and paste it underneath. All right, and then we can add our headings. So we have yoga classes and lifting classes. All right, and then let's check out our images. So we have the stretching image and the lifting image. So img/stretching.png. And then we have lifting.png. Okay, so let's take a look at our headings, images, and the text here in Google Chrome. All right, so everything looks good. So next, let's move on to the next banner image, which is where it says, "Get in the best shape of your life." So we'll say div class, banner, and then it's img source heading 2.png. And then we can close out our div tag here. All right. Okay, so there we have our heading 2 image. And now we can move on to our footer section. Okay, so let's use the HTML5 tag footer, and inside of that we'll have a div class. We're going to call it social for our social links, and then close out the div. And then inside of that we'll have a link for each one of our social icons with the font awesome reference that we used earlier. So we'll say ahref, and then you can put your link here to Facebook, for example, and then target_blank, so the link opens in a new tab rather than taking us away from our website. And then inside of our A tag, we'll have an I class that starts with FAB space FA dash, and then close out your I tag. All right, so let's copy this and paste it 3 times for each social media icon. And then all we need to do is add the social media network name for each icon. So we'll have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. So FA-Facebook, FA-Twitter, then Instagram, and YouTube. Okay, so I'm not putting my links in here. If you wanted to see those, I'll put them in the description of the video, as well as a subscribe link. If you haven't done so already, please like the video and subscribe. So there we have our social media links at the bottom of the website there. And that's everything for the HTML content for the entire website. So now what we can do is move over to style.css and get started with laying out all of our styles. So as you can see, what's already included for us at the top of style.css is a Google font, and then we also have the start of our media query for the mobile version beneath there with media max width 768 pixels. So the first thing that we're going to style here is called a reset style. So let's select the body of our HTML document. So we'll reference that with body here. And then what we're going to do is take away any inherent margin that the browser wants to put on the body section of our website. So that's going to take away some space here. So now you can see we have our text and image pushed all the way to the left. So next, let's change the font family to Open Sans from our Google font at the top here. So we'll just reference Open Sans, and then we'll have sans serif as our backup font. And then let's change the font size to 18 pixels from 16 pixels, which is inherent with Google Chrome. And then let's change our text color to a dark gray with 444. So now if we refresh, there we have the dark gray shade, as well as the Open Sans font style and the font size at 18 pixels. Then next, let's align our text in the center of the page with text align center. And then let's change the background color to a slightly off-white shade with the hex value F7, F7, F7. All right, so now if we refresh, there we have our text centered, and the background color is a little softer to go along with the gray text there. And then lastly, for our body style, let's say overflow auto. So if any content is outside of the page, we'll get a scrolling effect. And let's add another reset where we just say our all images have a max width of 100%. So now if we refresh, we have all of our images staying within the page here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move on to individual sections. So first, let's take care of our callout section, which is the gray bar up there with the phone number. So we'll reference that with the div ID callout. So for IDs in CSS, we'll reference them with the hashtag or the pound symbol, and then we'll say callout. And let's give this a width of 100%, and then we'll give it its background color, which is the same color as our text, 444. Okay, so now we're not seeing the text, but we'll change that in just a second. First, let's say height auto and overflow hidden. So this is going to make it so our gray section goes all the way up to the top of the page there. Okay, so now let's move on to styling the paragraph text. So we'll want to reference the div ID callout again, in addition to the P for our paragraph. So pound or hashtag callout and then P, and let's say text align right, since we don't want it centered, and then color FFF, the white color or white hex value. Then let's say font size 14 pixels, which is smaller than the 18 pixels we set for the body. All right, so now we have it a little smaller and pushing all the way to the right, but we want to create some padding there. So let's say padding right 5%. Okay, so now refresh, and there we have it lining up just like the original here. Okay, so let's add one more thing, which is the link there. So we don't have a link, but on mobile phones, any phone number is going to appear as a link. So basically we're saying if it appears on a mobile phone here as a link with the A tag, we want it to stay white and not have an underline with text decoration none. All right. So now let's go ahead and move on to the logo. So as you may remember, our logo is wrapped with the HTML5 header tag. So if you want, you can add padding to the logo with, say, padding 2%, 2% top bottom, 0 left right here to add some more space for your logo, or take away some of the space, or you could say text align left to push the logo off to the left side of the screen. I'm just giving you some style options here. For now, I'm just going to leave the header style blank so the logo stays centered on the page like the original. Alright, so moving on, let's drop down to our navigation here next. So we're gonna go ahead and reference the HTML5 nav, and then we'll reference the unordered list. So we'll say nav ul, then open and close your swirly brackets. So first, let's take away the dots or circles on our list items with list style none. So now if we refresh, the dots on the left will disappear. And then let's give it margin 0 to take away the spot or space underneath it. Okay, so now we have it pushing up right against our banner image there. And then let's say padding left 50 pixels. So if we look at the original, what we'll find is there's some padding over here. Thus the reason for padding left 50 pixels. Alright, so moving on, let's next style our list items here. So we'll say nav ul li, and we want them to float left so they're aligned to the left side of the screen. Okay, there we have them floating left with some padding to the left of them. And then let's say width 15%. Okay, so now we have some spacing between them. And then border 1 pixel solid hashtag 444 for the same gray color we've been using. Okay, so there we have our navigation links with some border, and they're starting to take shape. So let's go ahead and change our text next. So we'll want to reference our links, the A tag. So to get to them, we'll use nav ul li a, and then let's give them their font weight to make them bold with font weight 700. Okay, looking pretty good. And then let's take away the underline with text decoration none. Okay. And next, let's give them the same gray color as the border with color 444. All right. And then to add the spacing, we'll say display block. And then we can add the padding. So padding 5% top bottom, 12% left right. Okay, good. So now it's looking just like the original, except for we don't have the style when we hover over it, or the style for the first navigation link. So let's say nav ul li a :hover for when we hover over it, at comma nav ul li a, or sorry, li dot active a for our active class, which will keep the home link staying lit up. So let's say background color 444, and then we'll give the lime green color, which it matches the logo here, with AAD 400. Okay, so there we have the home link staying active, and then the rest have the hover effect here. Alright, so moving on, let's go ahead and drop down to our banner class. So the only thing that we're going to add is a little bit of padding underneath the join our fitness studio text there. So let's reference the div class banner here, and with classes we used a period rather than the hashtag with IDs. So dot banner padding bottom 2%. Alright, so now if we refresh, we have a little bit of space there underneath the join our loft fitness studio text. So next, let's go ahead and style our left column containing the two paragraphs here. So I want to reference the div class left-col. Alright, so we'll use the period for the class and then left-col, and we'll give it a width. So we'll have it at 55%. And then we'll say float left to push it off to the left side of the screen. And then let's give it a padding all around of just 1%. So padding 1%. Alright, so now if we refresh, there we have our text appearing to the left side, making just enough room for our sidebar image here to push up to the right side of it. So let's go ahead and reference the div class sidebar with dot sidebar. Okay, and we're going to give that a width of 40%, and then we'll tell it to float right. And then let's also give this the same padding at 1% all around. So now if we refresh, there we have our sidebar image right up next to our paragraph text here. Okay, so moving on down the page, the next thing that we'll style will be our 1/3 class. And the great thing about this is we only need to style the 1/3 section once to apply it to all three. So let's go ahead and reference our div class 1/3 in our style.css sheet. So .1-third, and let's give it a width of 29% to leave room for some padding instead of 33%. And then we'll tell it to float left, and let's give it a padding all around of 2%. Alright, so let's go ahead and refresh the version we're working on here, and there we have all three of our 1/3 columns lining up for us. So one thing that we'll notice though is if we flex the page upward, they're not going to stay in line. That first 1/3 column is going to push up into our left column. So let's go ahead and correct that. So we'll start here in index.html, and just beneath the div class sidebar and above div class 1/3, let's add div class clearfix. And then you can go ahead and close out the div here on the same line. So we don't need anything in between the div. All we need is the div to create a simple style here called clear both. So clear both is basically going to create a horizontal line, an invisible horizontal line, saying nothing should appear to either side of this line. Okay, so now we have the fitness classes 1/3 column dropping beneath that line. Alright, so moving on down the page, the next thing that we'll style will be the footer of our website here that contains the social media links. So let's go ahead and reference the HTML5 tag footer, which is right down here above our div class social. So we'll say footer, and let's give it its background color with the 444 shade of gray. And then we'll also give it a width of 100%. And then let's give it some padding. So we'll say padding 2%. Okay, so there we have our gray section at the bottom. And let's move on to our div class social right here to change the font size of our icons. Okay, so we'll say .social, and then let's give our icons a font size of 400%. So that's basically 4 times 16 pixels in Google Chrome. Okay, so that's pretty good with the size, but we'll want to space them out a bit and give them their color. So let's reference the link, or the A tag here. So we'll get to them by using .social A, and then let's give them their color with the hex value FFF for white. Okay, and then let's space them out to get them looking like the original here with padding 3% all around. So padding 3%. Okay, so now if we refresh, they're looking pretty good, except for we want them to be gray, a light gray when we hover over them. So let's say social A : hover, and let's change the color to the hex value D5, 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 which is a light gray. Okay, so there we have them making a slight change when we hover over them. And the original has a lot more padding actually to the footer section. So let's go ahead and change our padding inside of the footer tag here. So let's say 6% on top, 0 right, and then 10% on the bottom. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have a lot more spacing in our footer section. Okay, so that's everything for the full width style for the entire website here. So what we're going to do next is move on to the media query that we have started at the bottom of style.css to make it so our website looks just as good as the original for the mobile version here. Okay, so starting from the top, let's go ahead and make some changes to our navigation first, and then we'll get to the different sections as we work our way down the page. All right, so let's go ahead and reference nav ul, which is what we started with our navigation styling. So nav ul, and let's take away the padding on the left with padding left 0 instead of 50 pixels from before. Okay, so now we have our navigation pushed all the way to the left. And then next, let's change our list item style. So nav ul li, and let's say width 100% instead of 15%. Okay, and now we have them spanning the whole page. And let's take away the border on the right and left side. So let's say border left 0. And then border right 0. Okay, so now if we refresh, we'll see a slight change here. And next, let's go ahead and change the padding and the font size. So let's go ahead and reference the A here, so nav ul lia, and let's say padding 8 pixels on the top and bottom, and then 0 left right. Alright, so now it's looking pretty good, except for the original has a bit smaller text. So this is optional, but let's go ahead and change the font size to 16 pixels. Alright, okay. So now we have it looking just like the original down to join our Loft Fitness Studio. But beneath that, we need to make our left col and sidebar columns here 100% width. So let's go ahead and reference those. So we'll start with left-col for the left column. And let's give it a width of 100%. And let's take away the padding that we gave it and say padding 0. Okay, so now let's refresh. And there we have our paragraph text taking up 100% of the page there in our left column. So we'll change the size of it last, but let's move on to the sidebar section next with the image beneath the paragraph. Okay, so we'll get to that with .sidebar. And then let's say width 100%. And then let's also take away the padding with padding 0. Okay, so if we refresh, there we have our image at 100% of the width. Next, let's style our 1/3 sections here. So we'll say .1-third, width 100%, and padding 0. So what we could also do here is say .left col, comma, .sidebar, comma, and then .1/3, and use width and padding 0, or width 100%, padding 0, but I figured we'd do them individually so we can look at all the changes here. So lastly, let's go ahead and move on to the social media section at the bottom and make our links a little smaller. So let's take the font size from 400% to 200%. All right. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then lastly, let's just make our paragraph on the mobile paragraph text on the mobile version smaller at 15 pixels rather than 18 pixels. Okay, and then refresh. All right, so now we have the mobile version looking just like the original here. And it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and size it back up to the desktop version. And that does it for the full HTML5 website tutorial. I want to thank you for sticking around with me. Please remember to like this video, subscribe, and turn on your notifications. Then I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.